What's up, everybody, and welcome to Mystic's MMOs. I am your host, Mystic Raven. Alright, guys, so, hold on one second. Let me make sure I got that up just so I can see everything. Make sure it streams okay today. So I got a new build. It's a Warden Werewolf PvP build. And what's really nice about this build, it's for the upcoming DLC. Wolf Hunter, excuse me. And to be honest with you guys, I'm not going to be playing, but I told people I'd be providing a few builds, especially werewolf builds for those players wanting to do it. So I wanted to do a Warden werewolf build. This build isn't dependent on werewolf. Werewolf's just a perk to the build. Okay, so there's my disclaimer. All right, so let's get into it, shall we? Okay, so this is going to be a bow dual wield build. All right, so you're going to see my max stamina on my dual wield is 32,067. Stamina recovery 1915. Weapon damage prior to buff 2,378. Weapon critical prior to buff 40. And spell and physical resistance 20k. To the left, you're going to see everything allocated to stamina. We're using Dubious Kimura Throne. And we're using the Lover Mundus. Okay. Now on the bow side, you're going to also see 2,000 recovery. Max stamina 32. Weapon damage prior to buff 2,016. Recovery remains the same. Okay. So, let's get into the set, shall we? I'm going to be using the Pillar of Nirn set, along with Blood Drinker and Chewed On. Now let me go down piece by piece and explain what I'm doing here. So I'm going to be using Pillar of Nirn. What's it do is very simple. It gives me max stamina, it gives me critical, it gives me weapon damage. When I deal damage, I have a 10% chance to create a fissure underneath the enemy after 1 second, dealing 2,702 physical damage to all enemies within 2.5 meters. And causing them to bleed for an additional 12,040 physical damage over 10 seconds. And this can happen every 10 seconds. 1 second. Okay, sorry, my daughter. So, that's really nice, right? You want axes. Right now I have 1 axe and I have a mace. But you want 2 one-handed axes. You want the first one with Nirnhorn with increase, enchantment increase. That's going to be ideal. You want the second one decisive with weakening enchantment, right? Very important, especially when you're getting into some of those head-to-head battles. Just comes in really nice, especially off the weave. Now, very important to use axes. Why are we going to use axes? Because we're going to be using a bleed build, right? Very important, and when we look down at Twin Blade and Blunt, each axe gives your melee attacks an 8% chance to bleed enemies for 10,182 physical damage over 6 seconds. Now remember that bleeds ignore penetration. So it doesn't matter what their physical, what their resistance is, right? The bleed will ignore it. That's what's really nice about this build. So anytime they're going to get bleed effect, it's going to ignore their resistance completely. All right? So really nice. That's why you want 2 one-handed axes. Okay, can't stress that enough. Okay, so we're also going to use the Pillar of Nirn bow. Now, bows do not bleed, but we're going to keep this double stacked. The reason being because we're going to use Werewolf on our bow bar. So when we transform into a Werewolf, our light attacks also have a chance to apply bleed, right? They also throw bleed effect. So we want to keep the Nirn set intact at all times. We want to keep both sets static. Okay, you're also going to want to this with Nirnhorn with your Prismatic Enchantment. Prismatic Enchantment's very important with this update. Why? Because ZOS decided they want everything to be undead in PvP. We have vampires already, so why not throw it to the wolves? Well, that's fine. I want to put it on the bow because I'm going to hit it at a range, and it's going to deal 6,791 magic damage to all undead. Werewolves are included in that if they're transformed. So you best fucking believe I'm going to use this enchantment. Not that I'm going to PvP, but if you are going to PvP, you want this enchantment. Okay. Mighty Chewed-Ons. I really like this set, right? Because it's going to give me physical and spell resistance, it's going to give me max health, and it's going to give me major ward and major resolve at all times. That's huge, because when I take a look at my resistance, I have 20k, turn into a werewolf, and I'm getting 10k. So now I have 30k in medium armor. I have 30k resistance in medium armor, because werewolf is just that stupidly overpowered. So thank you, Zoss, for not thinking. And yeah, I'll exploit it. I'll tell all my viewers to exploit it every day of the week. Why? Because it cuts from base damage, right? That's what your resistance does, unless you get bleeded or if you get hit with this build or oblivion damage. Okay? So, furthermore. All right, so you want a heavy infused max stamina ideal. Blood Drinkers. Blood Drinker is very, very important with this build. Why? Because we're using Pillar of Nirn, right? It can apply an AoE bleed, not just to one target, but surrounding targets. With that being said, what this set does, give me critical, gives me weapon damage, gives me critical, but there's the big deal. Increases the damage you deal with bleed damage over time effects by 20%. All bleeds are dots. All of it. Every bleed you ever apply is never direct. They're always dots. So, why not bump up the damage of the bleed effect? If we're going to use Pillar of Nirn and we're going to use bleed effects like axes and abilities, we want to increase the damage of those abilities. And that's what this set does for us. So, boom, done, over with. So, infused, max stamina ideal. Mighty Chudon's Epilot, light, impen, max stamina. That's going to give us our Undaunted passive of 6%, increasing our base stats. Okay, very important. Waste Blood Drinkers, max stamina, impen, ideal. Blood Drinker Bracers, Divine, max stamina. Remember, we're going to be using Lever Mundus. We want one piece of Divine. We're going to use Blood Drinker Guards. You can go impen with this, but I want infused. I wanted the extra stamina. So if you want one more piece of impen, I would put it on the legs. Or Divine legs and then impen hands. Blood Drinker Boots, well fitted, max stamina, ideal. Pillar of Nirn necklace, infused, weapon damage. We're a Bosner. If you're not a Bosner this update and you decide to go a werewolf, good luck. Remember, Bosners get resistance to poisons. Very, 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 very important here. Resistance affliction. Being a Bosner too, we get stam recovery to 21%, so I'm not dependent on sets like Bone Pirates. Okay? So, very important. All right. One robust ring, recovery, and one bloodthirsty. Very important to have one bloodthirsty. Why? Because the dots are going to increase the damage too when they hit under 25%. So that's why it's called Rampage. They don't have to be near you. They can run away. But once the dots are applied and they decide, oh, I've got like 15%, I should run away. Good fucking luck. Because if the blood of the dots are on you, the bleeds, and this kicks in, bloodthirsty kicks in under 25%, you're dead. You're dead. Thank you. Good night. I don't need all of the stacked stats. I just need to go ahead and know how to utilize it. And a player like me, yeah, sure. Why not? So, bloodthirsty, 1. Do it with recovery. You won't be sorry. Okay. So, we got over the sets. We got all of the base stuff. So, let's get into the abilities. All right. So, Poison Injector. Range. Remember, werewolves are susceptible to poisons. You want to utilize this to your best advantage. You're going to use Subterraneous Assault, especially when you go in. That's going to apply Major Fracture, reducing physical resistance. Even though bleeds are going to cut through the resistance, remember, we're using abilities that don't always have bleeds. This comes in handy, plus it deals a nice amount of damage. Really, really nice. Cutting Dive combos up with blood with the Poison Injector, pretty good from a range. If you want to put Snipe in there, you can do that. I just like the burst effect of the Cutting Dive. Resolving Vigor, no surprise. Bird of Prey. Minor Berserk. It's going to increase our damage, especially with our dots. So we want that Minor Berserk buff. Werewolf Berserker. While transform your light attacks, apply a bleed for 17,180 physical damage over 8 seconds. It's gonna friggin' hurt, right? The bleed from this and from the Pillar of Nirn, those two alone will friggin' bust your ass open. All right. Dual wield bar, soothing spores. You don't have to use soothing spores if you want to go with, I just wanted a burst heal. But if you want to, you can go with the medium armor and you can go with shuffle on there. So you can put a shuffle on there if you don't want the heal. So I could just simply put that down and we'd be good to go. I'd rearrange the bar, but it's optional. That bar is optional. This is the big one, blood craze. Okay, so we got another bleed effect, right? We got werewolf bleeds. We got Pillar of Nirn. We got increased timer. We got blood craze. We got, you know, axes. So take advantage of it. Take advantage of blood craze, right? 10,000 over 9 seconds. It's over 2K per tick. Really nice. Steel Tornado finisher, double dip it. Spin to win. Why not? Bold Netch. Bold Netch is going to give us our major brutality. And it's going to give us our stamina. So when we go ahead and we click this, we go back into the character sheet. We're sitting at 27. And on the bow side, we're sitting at 23. Okay. Really nice. Okay, now here's the biggie. Green Lotus. Why? Why Green Lotus? 2 reasons. Major savagery, self-sustaining heals. Because we're going to be doing light attacks, right? With bleed. So we have to keep weaving to apply bleed with axes. So why not heal? That's why I said you don't need the spores. You can go with shuffle. That's perfectly fine.